This is a special high wind weather update on Monday evening. I'm meteorologist Don Paul. Welcome to my podcast, Don Paul's Bits o' Blather on weather and climate. And this is not blather. This is a severe weather event that's shaping up for most or all of Western New York. Early Sunday afternoon, the National Weather Service elevated a high wind watch to a high wind warning for all of Western and North Central New York. And a high wind warning means severe weather is anticipated. While the phrase high winds is used very casually in the news media and meteorology, it is a severe weather term in which some fairly widespread and significant wind damage is expected. And that's the indication here as well. Now, not everything is locked in as for all 8 Western counties receiving equivalent wind speeds, but what's most unusual in this event will be the orientation of the winds. In Western New York, typically southeast winds, once they reach the high wind criteria, confine the damage to hilltops and the Lake Erie shoreline from southwest Erie County around Angola down to the Pennsylvania line. But this time, most of the computer models, the high resolution models, are suggesting high winds on a southeast toward the northwest flow will extend all the way up to the Niagara frontier, and that could present some unique problems in that many of our trees, especially the shallow rooted trees, could be more vulnerable. First, because we have some soggy soil in much of Western New York. And more importantly, these winds have been conditioned by nature. I should say the trees have been conditioned to face the strongest winds from the southwest toward the northeast, not from the southeast toward the northwest, as will be the case this time around. That may mean more downed trees than usual relative to the wind speeds which actually are realized. So, with that in mind, no doubt National Grid and NYSEG are well alert to this problem. They have consulting meteorologists who help provide forecasts for them. Emergency managers have been informed. This warning's been in effect since Sunday afternoon, and it covers all of Western and North Central New York from 10 a.m. Tuesday to 4 a.m. Wednesday. It appears that high winds will develop first on late Tuesday morning in Chautauqua County to the southwest of Erie County, on the hilltops and along the Lake Erie shoreline, where by midday gusts could be approaching 60 miles per hour. The sustained winds will gradually increase in the hilly terrain to as much as 35 to 45 miles an hour. That's the average wind speed, but peak gusts could be in the range of 65 to 70 along that Lake Erie shoreline, meaning high profile vehicle drivers are going to be exposed on the New York State Thruway driving toward Pennsylvania to the strongest cross winds blowing perpendicular to their trucks. So it is a must if they're going to be driving on that stretch of the Thruway to reduce their speed, which lessens the vulnerability to being flipped. It's going to be very hazardous Tuesday, especially by afternoon, for high profile vehicles on that stretch of the Thruway. The general forecast for Tuesday is the rain that could become steady and soaking by late morning will start from southwest, move toward the northeast, and could begin as some slushy snow on the hills briefly, maybe an inch of slush, then quickly turning to rain because southeast winds are warming winds and will actually boost Buffalo high temperatures to the mid and upper 40s by mid-afternoon. The rain will be steadiest in the afternoon as winds gradually increase. And we could see by mid and late afternoon in the Buffalo metro area, the after school hours, wind gusts already approaching 65 miles per hour. There is in some models an indication of even stronger gusts than that, but for now we're going to stick with slightly more conservative numbers. And there actually is a difference between the damage potential from peak gusts of 65 versus peak gusts of 70. And you may think it would be insignificant, but not really. Again, we're concerned because with more trees vulnerable to these southeast winds, school superintendents are going to have to make some decisions because the danger of downed trees, tree limbs, down power lines, and flying debris presents a hazard both to children and adults and drivers as well. So there could be some tough calls for the school superintendents. And another unusual facet of this southeast wind, high wind event is that the strongest winds are typically behind the cold front from a deep low pressure system like this one. But this time, the winds ahead of the cold front are going to be the strongest. And of those, the very strongest winds, due to winds that are going down the slopes on a southeast flow and accelerating as they do so, will be south and southeast of the city of Buffalo. But the models are projecting the damaging gusts not quite as bad as those to reach the metro area during the mid and late afternoon. And again, emergency managers, utilities are on top of this. They have their own meteorologists who are consulting with them on forecasts for different areas of responsibility for National Grid and NYSEG. And in the evening hours, the peak winds may continue to be most ferocious during the first half of the evening. Behind the cold front, winds will veer and become southwest to northeast, as is typical. But as strong as those winds will be on Wednesday, they're not going to be quite as strong as the winds ahead of the cold front. That's really unusual, at least in this part of the country. Wednesday will feel much colder. The actual temperatures will be in the upper to mid 30s, but southwest winds at 20 to 30 with gusts to over 40 are going to produce a nasty wind chill and set up some modest lake effect rain and snow. Any snow accumulation would be more likely on the hilly terrain, elevation driven, because of the marginal temperatures. But by evening, there could be a coating around, and it will be a very uncomfortable day. Thursday and Friday, more uneventful, with the chance of some scattered light snow showers on Thursday and maybe a few snow or rain showers on Friday. But on Friday, a new and strengthening storm will begin to set up near the Gulf states and begin traveling to the northeast toward the Great Lakes. And there is good model agreement that that low pressure system will become another major storm. And as it heads into the eastern Great Lakes by Saturday morning, it will produce initially some rain, but has the potential to produce more high winds once its cold front goes by on Saturday afternoon, with falling temperatures as the real Arctic air that's previously going to have been over the central U.S. finally gets into the eastern Great Lakes. Temperatures will be falling into the 20s by Saturday night. Significant lake effect snow accumulations will be possible later on Saturday and Saturday evening on a southwest flow that is showing signs in most of our guidance of veering and becoming more westerly, which would send most of the lake effect snow south, even below the stadium. Yeah, that's the next real question. What is essentially a lock for playoff game Sunday is that it will be very cold and quite windy. It currently appears that the significant lake effect snow on Sunday will be south of Orchard Park on a westerly flow, but that is not yet a lock. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that throughout this week coming up. But at this point, it appears the actual air temperature will be in the low 20s on Sunday, with winds averaging 20 to 30 and some gusts to over 40, producing wind chills in the single digits. That's harsh. And it'll be harsh not just for the visiting team, but for the home team as well. And there is still some chance that lake effect snow could come back north to Orchard Park, not currently seeing it. Elsewhere, Saturday night, bad news for the Kansas City and especially Dolphins fans, where the actual temperature during that playoff game will be between 10 and 12 degrees, but a wind chill running at times in the minus teens and minus 20s. That is truly dangerous. And as rough as it may feel around here, that will be a whole lot worse. So I'm going to keep you updated through the week here on the podcast, on social media. And I thank you for listening this far, and I hope you will follow this podcast.